Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic for January 26th. My name 26, 29. No, 26. My name is Mike Avery, and glad to have you along with us as I'm here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio getting ready to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Airs on more than 30 AM and FM stations across the great state of Michigan. Good morning, John. How are you? Nice to have you along with us. As always, how are things over at CMU besides cold? It is cold, isn't it? Very, very cold. As you might have seen my post about that heated vest, felt pretty good this morning. Cliff, good morning. Brian, good morning. Bruce, nice to have you with us. Chad, good morning to you as well. Again, here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Good morning, Craig. I saw Michelle, took care of the paperwork. Chris, how are things in Kansas? Cold, I'm sure. But it's good news for the ice fishermen, right? The ice anglers. We can't limit it just to the male anglers. John, good morning. How are you? Brian, staying warm. Went out and worked out this morning. Should have stayed in. Yeah, that's for sure. Mike Wilson, good morning. How are you? Mike, what day is it? Hump day. Hey, Laurie, good morning. How are you? Jerry, nice to have you along with us. No, thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. I'll talk a little bit more about Craig's generosity here in a couple of minutes. Frosty morning, Brad. Yeah, nice to have you along with us. Kevin, the same. Hello, Jay. Mike checking in from Arizona, where I'm sure it is warm. Eric. Well, Eric says, welcome to my phone, Mike. Well, Eric, it's good to be in your phone. You've got to stop texting so much. I can see that, Eric. You're spending way too much time texting. Mike, nice to have you along with us as well. Fred, Houghton Lake this morning, where it's 12 below. Gobble. Oh, the DNR screwed up. I didn't win the Pure Michigan hunt. I have to add that to my list here of things to talk about. PMH. I cannot believe it. Jim, good morning. How are you? I was so convinced I was going to win the Pure Michigan hunt. I was watching live last Saturday at noon. Not only did they not draw a Mike A, they didn't even draw a Mike. Anyone here back on the spring 2021 spring turkey patches? I haven't heard anything, Brian. It was only -5 in hell this morning. There's a joke in there. I love it when Paul checks in from hell. Good morning, Tim. Nice to have you along with us. Loving the cold weather fishing has been decent on Saginaw Bay and the Saginaw River as well. Oh, Chris says it's cold in Kansas, but not cold enough to freeze his pond. Hey, Brent. Good morning, buddy. How are you? Nice to have you along with us. Emil said they spelled his name wrong, too. I was convinced. I thought this was my year. Good morning, Terry. Appreciate you being along with us. I thought this was my year for the Pure Michigan hunt. Trekking Outdoors. Good morning, guys. Keep up the good work. Yeah, Pure Michigan hunt. No elk tag for me this year. Oh, Ed, don't even talk to me about being cool down there in Florida. The temperature's a little chilly. Do you have to wear a jacket? Come back here and be a real man. Larry, you are my hero. He's been rabbit hunting with a recurve. What a blast. I bet it is. Man, that would be fun. Talk about snap shooting, instinctive shooting. What a riot. Dave, nice to have you along with us. Brian says, congrats to those winners. Yeah, darn them. Darn people who won the Pure Michigan hunt. Unless, of course, they want to give me their bear or elk tag. Then, yes, congrats. What else? It is cold. It's making ice. Really good ice. And the fishing's been pretty good. Somebody mentioned Saginaw Bay. Saginaw River has been really surprisingly good. Not necessarily big fish, a lot of smaller fish. But how many years has the Pure Michigan hunt been drawn? I don't know the answer to that, Bernie. Jeff, good morning, Hunter Joe. Where it is 13 below. Lori's got 2 tables for the March 5th fundraiser at Trinity Monitor. So did any listeners win? Brian, that's a good question. I don't know. Oh, the DNR drew my name 4th. I'm the first alternate. Thank you, Cliff. That gives me some hope. 8 to 12 on Hubbard Lake. 8 to 12 inches of ice on Hubbard Lake. You notice I do this to try to see it. This is my faraway eye, which I can't see anything. This is my close eye, which I can see a little bit. And it'll be a while before I get that one worked on. So what else? Oh, did you see the sturgeon that was caught? And this is actually fairly common. I think the Saginaw River is one of the greatest conservation success stories in recent history. I'll talk more about that in the first segment of this week's show. But a river that didn't freeze now is frozen solid. Thousands of anglers on it every day. They're catching walleye. They're catching sturgeon. I mean, how much better does it get? Shed hunting. If you want to start looking for whitetail sheds, this is a good time to do it, although it might be a little chilly right now. You might want to wait till it warms up just a little bit. John, good morning. How are you? That Trinity Dinner. Tickets are still available. Not very many. 989-662-4891. We're also going to have an online component this year. If you can't make the dinner itself, everything other than the live auction, you will be able to bid on. Good morning, Josh. How are you? Some of our items this year, and most of these will be live auction items. Morning, Josh. Look forward to talking to you Thursday night. An African safari, courtesy of Craig Plowman and Trophies Africa. A Lake Michigan salmon and trout fishing trip from Paul Schlafly. A Saginaw Bay walleye fishing trip from Jeff Godey. Michigan Upland Bird Hunt from Lori and Brian Stroik, Wildcard Guide Service. I think that's the name, Lori. Help me out. Detroit River Walleye Fishing, Mark Pananzek. Saginaw Bay Walleye Trip with me. River Cruise with me and my wife, Denise. Dixie Dave is giving away some wild game dinners. Johnny Bowler's giving away a Michigan bear or deer hunt, meaning if you have a bear tag for Newberry, you can bear hunt with him. If not, he will set you up on a baited blind for whitetails. Captain John Littlefield is giving away a Great Lakes charter fishing class to get your charter's license through Great Lakes Charter Training. Michigan Brand Meats is giving away Michigan Brand Meats for a year. Scott Keatsman of Linwood Taxidermy, Shoulder Mount, Linwood Beach Marine is giving away a yearly launch pass. We're going to have some offshore products, a Rapid River knife from Chris Durson. I mean, we've got so many great things. Wild Card Outfitters and Guide Service LLC. Not to put too fine of a point on it, right, Lori? Wild Card Outfitters and Guide Service LLC. There, Nick said Michigan brand products for a year subscription. I just talked about that, Nick. Yeah, they're not going to load you up with all of the products, all the Michigan brand products for a year. You're not going to walk out there with a car full of stuff. But with the way we're going to set it up, and we don't really know exactly what it is, but it will be Michigan brand products for a year, and you'll get them once a month for a year. What's your thoughts on the DNR not closing the Saginaw River for the next walleye next year? Nick, there are some great auction items and prizes, and I'm so disappointed you guys can't make it, but I certainly understand. I don't know, Marty. It's an interesting situation. It was kind of brought up by an NRC commissioner, which is kind of the end around way to do things. See, Ross, this is the thing, credit cards. You will have to use an app this year. And in that app, you will put your credit card. But yes, to answer your question, yes, credit cards will be accepted, but we're not going to be taking them there in person. You're going to have to assign your credit card to an app. We're going to do it that way. I don't know if you're going to close the river because of a spawning, a baited whitetail stand. Count me in. Now, this is for the UP, Richard, so that's why it's legal. It's in the UP. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Good morning, Stephen. Lithium batteries. $500 to $900 a piece. Yeah, they're not cheap, are they? They're not cheap, Ron. 989-662-4891. 989-662-4891. For which app? It's a specific app, Ross. I can't tell you what it is yet. We hope to have it online. Deidre's going to do this, I think, early next week. We will release the information to the public, hopefully sometime next week, and you'll actually be able to start bidding on some of the items soon. Good morning, Danny. Nice to have you along with us. We haven't done this before. A lot of the fundraising auctions are going to this. Valley Lutheran has been doing it for a couple of years, and they've had great success with it. We'll see how it goes. Good morning, Ed. Richard says, yeah, he didn't think of that. Yeah. Yeah, Pat checking in from Canada. Yeah, Richard. We're going to put you in a baited whitetail stand in the northern lower. That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Lori's telling somebody I have your ticket March 5th for March 5th. Good morning, Joe. How are you? You have a great day as well. What else is on my list? 989-662-4891, 989-662-4891. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Your comments there. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, and I'm here in the studio to record this week's show. We're going to start out with Matt Taggett. Matt is with Michigan-based family-owned Rec Broadheads, REK, but we're going to talk about shed hunting, the search for shed whitetail antlers. And then, of course, we'll talk about Rec Broadheads. They introduced a new broadhead at the ATA show. We'll talk more about that. Beth Gruden from the Michigan Wildlife Council with an update on their Here for Generations campaign. Then in hour number 2, the airborne angler. You've seen him online, Martin Seliga. He is a guy who flies Saginaw Bay, Tawas Bay, the east side of the state, and documents ice conditions primarily for anglers. So you can see what's going on out there. We will have some Saginaw Bay walleye fishing tips as well. Andrew says, Mike, what day is it? Andrew, you're not the first person to ask that. It's hump day. Good morning, Julie. How are you? Nick Green from MUCC checks in. Then this week's Ask Avery segment, a couple of very interesting questions, including, can you shoot across a roadway in Michigan? The answer might surprise you because it did me. Lori says Hunting Time Expo in Grand Rapids is this weekend. Thank you for that. I forgot about that. Julie says she's good. Dave, good morning. How are you? Johnny, there's Johnny. Johnny is giving away either a bear hunt or a deer hunt in the UP, depending on whether you have a tag for the Newberry area. If you have a tag for Newberry, Johnny will put you in one of his bear stands on one of his bear baits. If you don't, he will provide a baited whitetail stand. Now it's baited and legal in the UP, so that's a good item, Johnny. I appreciate that. We will give that away in the live auction. At least that's my plan right now. And in hour number 3, Tom Lounsbury checks in. Richard, man, I can't tell you how many bellies slice open to see what they're eating. You won't believe how much corn they found. Yeah, isn't it interesting that there's not a lot of corn that grows in the Alpena area, yet a lot of the deer that go down end up with bellies full of corn. Isn't that interesting? That can't possibly be because it's illegal to use bait. Chad, it's minus 13 where he is in the UP with a 26 below wind chill. My heated vest felt pretty good this morning. And, of course, we'll wrap it up with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Miner. So I think it's going to be a pretty good show. Also going to record a Primal Tree Stands podcast today with forgive me, I don't Philip Culpepper. You probably know the name better than I do. I don't know Philip well yet. Hunt Club TV. I suspect I will get to know him much better as we work our way through these Primal Tree Stands podcasts. He will not be my guest on every Primal podcast, but I suspect we'll be checking in with him quite often, talking about turkey hunting, food plots, and deer hunting as well. Speaking of food plots, of course, we are no longer doing a Killer Food Plots podcast. Pretty hard to do a Killer Food Plots podcast without Nick. And our friend Nick is in a better place now. So I miss doing those podcasts. Joe says, going to go catch some perch and walleye ice fishing local lake here in Kalamazoo County next weekend. Have fun. Jeff says, so is the river open to walleye all year now? No, Jeff, not this year. This is scheduled to begin next year, which tells you a lot about the confidence in that decision. You can bet if everybody, including the fisheries biologists and DNR, were on board with this decision, you would have think they would have put it into place this year, but it's not in place until 2023. I wonder, well, I suspect it'll happen for at least a year or so. With the illegal baiting and feeding going on, whole state should have CWD. Just make it legal again. Guessing a Milwaukee vest. Chris had over 100 turkeys out. Somebody is probably asking about my vest. Which brand heated best? A cheap one. Cheap one. To be honest with you, I got online at Amazon. I'd have preferred to buy it locally, but I needed it right away because my other one died on me. Tom says he's been on the bay. Walleye are on fire. We will hear more about that from the airborne angler, Martin Seliga, in hour number 2 of this week's show. I did get some interesting comments on last week's show where we talked about, where I talked with Jordan Farmer about him losing another hunting dog to wolves as he was bobcat hunting in the UP. Also got a lot of comments on my conversation with Chris Durson of Rapid River Knives about going out to Idaho, I think it was, Idaho, and shooting a mountain lion. And I like hearing that. I mean, I like it when topics we bring up on the show generate conversation, because good, wholesome conversation is positive, right? If people say, look, I don't agree with what these people are doing, but I'm willing to sit down and let them explain why, that's good. That's good. I don't even know what that means, Chad. I'm a strong believer that GMO plants equals CWD. I'm not smart enough to know what that means. Okay. Another dog. Yeah, he lost one before, Chad. Bunch available. Milwaukee products are good and well known. Good point, Jeff. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Ross is heading down to Bay City. Good morning, Kevin. How are you? I'll talk to you in a couple of tomorrow night, I guess. Ross said he's got to come down the Walleye or bother him. Chess didn't know they had others. Yeah. It's his second dog killed, and I think his fourth one attacked. I think both times that Jordan lost a dog, I know for sure this last time he also had another one that was attacked but not killed. So what else? Don't forget about our Trinity Dinner. That's coming up Saturday, March 5th. Tickets still available. Not very many. Call 989-662-4891 for tickets. 989-662-4891 for tickets. We're just about sold out, but many items will be online. The GMO corn says beans, etc. is what I believe. Gotcha, Chad. But if you can't make it to the auction this year, well, number one, you're going to miss some Chef Dave Miner cooking, and you're going to miss just a great time. But many of the auction items, pretty much everything except for the live auction items, will be available for bid online. This is the first time we've done this. A lot of groups are going to this online format. Jeff says, Chad, the heated industry apparel is booming. Yeah. Ross says, are you allowed to protect your dogs if they get attacked by wolves? Yes, you can. If your dog, livestock, or of course a person are being, I think the word is threatened, maybe it's attacked by wolves, you are allowed to take the appropriate action. And in fact, Jordan did. This time he was armed. He had a handgun with him, unlike his first interaction with wolves. And he did take a couple of shots at the wolf. He said he didn't think he hit it. There was no blood in the snow. I said, Jordan, tell me the truth. Is that wolf dead somewhere? I won't tell anybody. He said, no, I don't think I hit it. A little too far to drive from Kansas, Chris. Yeah. David says a big weekend for coyote hunting with the Great Lakes GLRPC. Great Lakes RPC. Predator control. I don't know what the R stands for. Yes, but you must be attacking. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm sure you got to justify it. In Jordan's case, there was no problem. Cannot be rounding it up. I don't know what that means, rounding it up. You mean, yes, but must be attacking, can be rounded. Cannot be rounding it up. Great Lakes Region Predator Challenge. Thank you, David. Cliff says 4 shanties out of launch, Selfridge, a few shanties in launch area. Wait, in the story, he said he shot both. He said shot both. He didn't shoot the first time around because he wasn't armed the first time. You can hear those. You can hear those conversations. By the way, you can hear all the podcast version of all the shows, the radio shows, on YouTube, on my Facebook page, and any of the other podcasts where you get your platforms where you get your podcasts from. You can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. How much time, Pat? About a minute?
Got about 90 seconds.
About a minute and a half before we start the show here. When we do this, I will keep this live feed going. No, this time, 2 wolves tearing the dog apart. Yeah, he said there was a dog on each end. Yeah, but he did. I don't think he got a shot at both of them. He said it was fast, and he was just kind of shooting that direction. But yeah, there was a dog on each end. There was a wolf on each end of his dog trying to tear it apart. That's what he said. Yeah. All right, so in about a minute here, we will begin to record the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. I will keep this live feed going, and you're more than welcome to stick around. That way you'll get a little preview of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. However, and this happens all the time, people will jump on here once I'm recording the show and ask me a question and expecting me to respond, and I can't. And then they're like, well, Avery, why are you ignoring me? I'm not. Once I start recording the radio show, that has to be my prime focus, and I can no longer directly interact with you and answer your questions directly. However, we can do that tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. This is something I do every Wednesday night at 7 on as many social media platforms as possible, and then we can have a good conversation, a good interaction. Remember, 989-662-4891, 15 seconds if you want tickets for the Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. Chef Dave Miner is cooking. I am the host and auctioneer. A lot of great items. Many of them will be available online. Details on that as they become available. Boom. What, no countdown, Charlie? Pat gives me a countdown. He does. Pat counts me down. That's why Pat's my favorite. Oh, Charlie just walked in. That's why both these guys are my favorite. Actually, Charlie can hear me. He knows what I'm saying. He knows I'm just, as my grandson Carter would say, he knows I'm just spoofing him. All right, my friends, have a good day. Try to stay warm. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Behind the Mic. And I hope you can join me tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. All right, I got to go to work. You can't really call it that, but here's what I do. Have a good day, my friends. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network. More than 30 AM and FM stations across the great state of Michigan. I'm here for 3 hours every week talking about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle, hunting and fishing, and shooting and trapping, conservation issues, even some wild game cooking. And as I am at the microphone this week, I'm mad. I'm mad at the DNR. I know most of you spend your whole lives mad at the DNR. I get it. But I'm mad at the DNR right now because they made a huge, huge mistake, in my opinion. Last weekend, I was online at noon watching them draw the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt. 3 names. And I had told you ahead of time that I was absolutely convinced this was my year, and I was going to be one of the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt, because then I was going to get the bull elk tag. I was going to get the any season, any area bear tag, a lot of great prizes, a lot of other stuff. And you know what? They forgot to draw my name. I was waiting by the phone. I had it in my hand, fully charged, waiting for them to draw Mike A with the last digits of the phone number 80. And they didn't call me, and they didn't draw my name. And I am convinced that there is a flaw. No, there's not. I was going to say there's a flaw in the system. There's not. I don't want to start that whole conversation. There's no flaw in the system other than the fact that they didn't draw my name. But you know what? I will put in some entries again next year. People say, why do you do it? People say, well, you're throwing away $5 every pop to the DNR. Well, there's always a chance. What was the old lottery commercial. You can't win if you don't play. Well, I'll never win the lottery because I don't play that. But I would like to win the Pure Michigan Hunt, and I will try again next year. So what is in the outdoor news this week? It's got to be the weather. Baby, it's been cold outside. Like really cold, like frigid cold, like dangerously cold, like old style cold. But that's great news, right, for the folks who love to ice fish. Great ice conditions across pretty much the entire state, and there aren't a lot of times I can say that. Really good ice conditions, pretty good fishing. I've also noticed too the days, and you have too. The days are really getting longer. You can feel it now. It's out there. It's on the horizon. But in the meantime, lots of great wintertime outdoor action. Ice fishing, yeah. Predator hunting, you bet. Rabbit hunting, shed hunting. A search for shed whitetail antlers. We'll talk about that a little bit in the show this week. Although, I would probably wait a couple days till it warms up just a little bit. When I think about ice fishing, you know, I look at my frame of reference here. And because of where I live here in the state and because of my background about what I used to do, you know, that Saginaw Bay walleye fishery is very near and dear to me. And, you know, people say, quit talking about that. And I try to talk about as many different areas of the state as I can, as many different resources and recreational opportunities. But I really consider the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery, the Saginaw River walleye fishery, one of the greatest conservation success stories that I've witnessed, that I can even think of in my lifetime. I mean, the Saginaw River used to be so dirty, it didn't even freeze. In fact, I remember when I used to work at TV5, WNM TV5, as believe it or not, a news guy 3 or 4 lifetimes ago. And that was right during the time when the river started to freeze. And it started to freeze because the river was cleaning itself up. You know, man got smart and quit putting stuff in there, and Mother Nature took over and started cleaning things up. And the first couple of years that the river started to freeze over, you know, we always listened to the scanner, the police scanner in the newsroom. And they'd send cops and they'd send firemen over to the river because kids were out on the ice. My goodness, they're risking their lives. Send a rescue crew down there. Put ladders out there. Send firemen out there with ropes on them to save these kids. You can't be on that river. Well, look at it nowadays. Frozen solid. Every day, thousands, I mean literally thousands of walleye anglers on that river that years ago didn't freeze. And the river is absolutely full of fish right now. Maybe not big fish, but a lot of fish. And what's the one good thing about little fish? Someday they will become big fish. A lot of legal fish. I just think it's wonderful. It's a great conservation success story. And I personally have seen several of those in my lifetime here in Michigan. What about turkey hunting? My goodness. And yes, I think it is true that across the state, in general, turkey numbers are down a little bit. Now, why is that? That's a good question. I'm going to make myself a note. That's a question to follow up on. Why are those numbers down a little bit? But still, world-class turkey hunting here in Michigan. A recreational opportunity that didn't exist when I was a kid growing up on the west side of the state. We didn't have turkeys. Now they're in every county of the state. To the point where we've got a season here in the springtime that's 6 weeks long. Fall turkey hunting now is a viable option as well. That's a great conservation success story. What about the salmon fishery? Yeah, it goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. But we had a new state record king salmon caught on Lake Michigan last year. Who would have thought that so many years after those fish were introduced to the Great Lakes? But again, a great conservation success story. So there's good news out there. No, don't just focus on the bad news, right? I got to take just a minute, too, to plug something that I think is great news. Our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction is back on, and I've got to talk about some of the items and some of the generous people that have stepped up. We have a list of items this year that is absolutely blowing my mind. Some of the highlights. An African safari, courtesy of my friend Craig Plowman and Trophies Africa. A Lake Michigan trout and salmon fishing trip from Paul Schlafly. A Saginaw Bay walleye fishing trip from Jeff Godey. A Michigan upland bird hunting trip from Brian and Lori Card of Wild Card Outfitters and Guides. A Detroit River walleye fishing trip from Mark Pananzek. A Saginaw Bay trip. I'm going to take some folks out on Saginaw Bay walleye fishing. A river cruise on Saginaw Bay with me and my wife, Denise. Chef Dave Miner is giving away some dinners at the restaurant. Johnny Bowler, my friend, is giving away a Michigan bear or deer hunting trip. Meaning if you have a bear tag for the Newberry District, you can hunt bears with him. If not, he will put you on a baited whitetail stand. And keep in mind, he's in the UP, so a baited whitetail stand is indeed legal. We're not going to set you up in an illegal situation. Captain John Littlefield is giving away a week-long charter class to become a charter captain. This is the class I took from John through Great Lakes Charter Training. This is a big deal. Listen to this. A year's worth of Michigan brand meats. Courtesy, of course, our friends at Michigan Brand Meats. Charlie just looked at me like, I want in on that one. Now, we're not going to load you up with a year's worth of product right off the bat, but every month you will get a shipment every month for a year of Michigan Brand Meats. And I bet there will be some Mike Avery Hunter sticks in there somewhere. Scott Keatsman at Linwood Taxidermy giving us a shoulder mount. Linwood Beach Marina throwing in a launch pass for a year. That's valuable. Offshore Products giving us some gear. Rapid River Knives giving us some gear. I mean, a knife, of course. So many people have stepped up to help make this possible, and I am so excited about it. If you would like tickets for the event, which is Saturday, March 5th, and you better act fast because there aren't many tickets left. 989-662-4891. 989-662-4891. Call weekdays in the morning if you can. Tell them you'd like a couple of tickets. And this year, for the first time, we're trying something interesting. Part of our fundraising efforts will be online. Now, the live auction that I will be the auctioneer on, those are only those items, and those are the big ticket items, are only available to people there in person. But all of the other items will be available online. Details on that as they become available. This is the first time we've used this, so we're just kind of working the kinks out. We are very excited about it. Other organizations, other groups have used this with great success, and it allows anybody to bid on the item. So very, very excited about that. Again, details as they become available. 989-662-4891. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, Matt Taggett of Wreck Broadheads. Man, I love Wreck Broadheads. He'll be talking about shed hunting, and then we'll talk about Wreck Broadheads. Beth Gruden from the Michigan Wildlife Council with an update on their Here for Generations campaign. In hour number 2, the airborne angler, Martin Seliga, checks in with ice conditions on Saginaw Bay, why he does what he does. In fact, ice conditions up and down the east side of the state, Tawas Bay out across the thumb, and some ice fishing tips as well. Nick Green of MUCC will join us with an update. This week's Ask Avery segment with a question about, is it illegal to shoot across a road? The answer might surprise you. And then we'll wrap it up with the guy you love to hear on the show, Tom Lounsbury, veteran outdoorsman, expert hunter, expert angler. And then wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. We visited Dave last week at the restaurant. It was a wonderful visit, and I always look forward to his radio conversations as well. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. All right, my friends, have a good day.
Do you want to save 20 grand?
Stay warm, and I will talk to you tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live.